let's bring on our next presenter here, Philip Young. He's CEO of LOBE Sciences. There's Philip. How's it going, man? How you doing today?
It's going great, Brett. Thank you.
Yeah, we are excited to have you. I'll let you take it away, sir.
Perfect. Thanks a lot.
And just a quick reminder to share your screen. And when you share your screen, there's going to be a little pop-up at the bottom that's going to say, like, you're sharing. Just remember to hit the little hide button so we can see all of your slides. Yeah.
How is that?
I can't see. I just see you and I so far, and it says lobesciences.com. I will let you know.
And share.
Computers are fun, right, Philip?
I love them. Every time I get to walk away from them, I love them. Okay.
All righty.
Let's see if this one worked.
Looks like something's moving. Something wants to happen. I saw some motion.
Hold on a minute.
All righty there. Ooh, I saw it for a sec. There you go. Yeah, so just hit the present button and you should be good to go. You are good to go. So hit maybe you can just, I don't see the hide button. Yeah.
Oh, hang on. That gets rid of it.
We had it, Philip, and then we didn't have it. My apologies.
There we go.
I led you astray there. There we are. Woohoo! All right, take it away, Philip. LOBE Sciences.
Okie dokie. Hey, thanks, Brent. I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to present what LOBE Sciences is doing. We're excited about the opportunity, and here we go. I'll be making some forward-looking statements today. All of our filings are current in the Canadian CEDAR website, so please, if you have any further interest in looking at them, please go there directly. So what's LOBE Sciences and what are we doing? We're a life science company that's focused and engaged in drug development, drug research, as well as medical device development. We have a simple vision, but it's very impactful. We're developing and delivering solutions to improve the human condition. And we're focused on brain health across the board, whether it be traumatic brain injury or subsequently developing post-traumatic stress disorder. Two conditions that have no medical treatment approved by any authorities as we sit here today. And when you see some of our new preclinical data, I think you'll agree that we're on the path to developing psychedelics and other concomitant medicines. So everyone's heard psychedelics. I'll briefly go over the principal psychedelics that are under development across the globe. Psilocybin, DMT, LSD, everyone's heard of MDMA, Molly. The key for all of the psychedelics is they're serotonin regulators, and they regulate mood, happiness, anxiety. And as you'll see in a few minutes, they also probably do a very good job at increasing and making new neural connections. Psychedelics principally work at the 5-HT2A receptor site, which we'll go into in a little bit. What we have here is a long-term history of psychedelics going back thousands and thousands of years. There's drawings of shamans holding mushrooms, and fast forward that over the centuries, and you see people have used psychedelics for medicinal care as well as for recreational care. And then as you get to 2019, 2020, slowly but surely, there's a new renaissance of psychedelic medicine occurring. This is recreational use principally. Places like Denver, Santa Cruz have decriminalized psilocybin. That's great. It means you can get some mushrooms and take them and enjoy the experience. What we're doing is we're taking it much further, is we're developing pharmaceutical products under the best guidance and regulatory guidance of the FDA and the global regulatory authorities. But this is a very good first step. And going back to the 60s, there was psilocybin marketed in the United States by Sandoz. It's something the FDA is familiar with and something that really is supportive of what we want to do, is improving mental health with the application of psychedelics. So as I mentioned, we're looking at traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress disorder with a combination approach. We think that using NAC, N-acetylcysteine, and psychedelics together really should be the 1-2 combination that gives an additive effect or increased effect over either therapeutic agent delivered alone. We're in combination working with the University of Miami, Dr. Michael Hoffer. As I mentioned earlier, we're in the early stages of developing a nasal delivery device. Our belief is that if we're going to create a pharmaceutical market that's easy for patients to use, we have to treat the patients where they live. and delivering small doses intranasally that are not psychedelic or trip-inducing is going to be the way to do it. The markets are very large and very attractive. As I mentioned, there is no treatment, so if we become the first treatment approved for regulatory use, approved by the regulators for use, we have a great opportunity. Just with post-traumatic stress syndrome, and these numbers have increased tremendously with the advent and the occurrence of the global pandemic. But as you can see, 40% of the people who suffer traumatic brain injury develop PTSD, and that's really where our thinking has come into play about the combination therapy. Traumatic brain injury, 69 million people globally sustain a traumatic brain injury every year. Probably not surprising to all the females in the audience. The ratio is 2 to 1 male to female, principally coming from sports injuries as well as other activities where the head is involved. The CDC says that 5.3 million US citizens, 2% of the population, are living with the results of traumatic brain injury. Very often, as mentioned, it's post-traumatic stress disorder. And those are really the big markets we want to attack. So PTSD, and if we'll start with traumatic brain injury, patients are told when they come to the hospital, they're told that they should go home, sit in a dark room, wait for the symptoms to get better. If they have a headache, take some over-the-counter medicine for the headache, and you'll get better over time. Well, as you saw from the previous slide, people don't get better over time. The headaches don't go away, the confusion doesn't go away, the inability to concentrate doesn't go away, and over time, this morphs itself into post-traumatic stress disorder. It's really a devastating consequence of the brain injury, but the problem is the brain is a very complex organ, and traumatic injury to it still is not widely understood. But what's understood is that patients are sent home, and if they don't recover thoroughly and completely, they very often develop post-traumatic stress disorder. So why are we looking at the combination of psychedelics and NAC? Well, as mentioned earlier, psychedelics, principally what we're focused on now is psilocybin, the serotonergic hallucinogens. They're very powerful at high doses, and they alter reality for patients. You've heard of the experience of having a trip, et cetera. But they're considered safe. A lot of people don't tolerate and don't like the trip, which is why we're looking at using low dose at home that doesn't induce a psychedelic effect. But our second therapeutic intervention is NAC, N-acetylcysteine. It's a dietary supplement that was originally introduced to the market for treating acetaminophen overdose. It's a powerful antioxidant. It's thought to reduce DNA damage, and it's marketed also for liver protective properties. It's sold over the counter in health food stores and is easily available, but it has been studied. It has been studied by Dr. Michael Hoffer from Miami in blast traumatic brain injuries in Iraq, and the data was very impressive and compelling. And that really led us to the combination of psychedelics and NAC. Really quickly, the science side, I won't get too deeply into this. The 5-H2A is a G-coupled protein receptor. It's very serotonin-rich target. It's great for psilocybin to activate those receptors. And we believe, and the science believes, that it can increase the plasticity of the neurons, making them more viable. It's important. I mentioned earlier the reset. If you look at the side that says placebo, that's what happens in the rats in this study that were imaged, and looking at the neural connections. They're okay, there's some connections. But if you look at the connections induced by the psilocybin experience, tremendously increased signaling, increased neural activity, which is maintained for up to 6 months. This is where we believe the real impact of psychedelics is coming into effect. And some people call it the brain reset button. It's very important. So our focus, traumatic brain injuries, is looking at how we can improve the outcome of patients after they've had the traumatic brain injury. There are no studies or clinical trials related to traumatic brain injury in classic psychedelics. We aim to be the first to demonstrate that activity. One other key component of the brain injury, also moving downstream to the PTSD, is anti-inflammatory. It's been demonstrated in numerous studies that both psilocybin and the NAC can be anti-inflammatory, and an inflammation in the brain is a key component of the brain injury. And what we're doing now is looking at how we can improve the outcome of these patients. They have the trauma, they have the ability to decrease the inflammatory response by taking 2 medicines instead of taking 1 or taking nothing. So here's the University of Miami preclinical studies that we've just announced the first cohort yesterday. What's going on is Michael Hoffer and his team are looking at multiple models, animal models, rat models, of traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress syndrome. They've used these models over the years, and Dr. Hoffer and his team are very skilled at running these models. An interesting thing happened along the way. Not only was there a pandemic, which caused things to be delayed, all of a sudden there was a shortage of psilocybin this year. And so a lot of the researchers in the United States ran out of psilocybin. We've been able to address that, and Michael Hoffer and his team now have all the psilocybin they need to finish up the models. But before they did, before they ran out, they were able to finish one of the key components, which is a classic study looking at rats in what's called a light dark box experiment. Basically, you induce the trauma, whatever it may be, the head trauma, or you induce the traumatic stress syndrome trauma, the predator scent. And rats generally, when you put them in the dark and light, they seek the light. They like the light. They like to go there. They're curious creatures. When they've been injured, they'll stay in the dark. If they've been treated, they tend to do better and go in the light and seek light aggressively. A very interesting chart here, statistically significant, highly statistically significant. The rodents treated with a combination of psilocybin and NAC performed very, very, very much better than either component or alone or vehicle or placebo. First experiment done demonstrating that our hypothesis, the combination therapeutics, are going to be better than individual. In this experiment, they were, and we're very excited to keep pushing this data forward. This is great validation, supporting our IP, and really giving us a leg up on the competition. We've got multiple patents in proceedings right now, and I believe that with that data we've just released and forthcoming data, we'll have a very solid hold on these patents moving forward. We have lots of collaborations. I don't have a lot of time to go over them, but I'll highlight a couple of them. First, virtual psychedelics, developing a headset-free virtual experience for patients as treatment alone or as treatment with psychedelic therapy. In certain conditions, severe depression and other severe PTSD, a psychedelic experience may be needed and may be something important. Dr. Skip Rizzo at UCLA and Brett Leonard in LA are both probably the most experienced people in the world at applying virtual reality, and Dr. Rizzo certainly in the medical setting. What we hope to do is develop the Chrysalis Pod, which will give doctors around the globe the opportunity to have patients experience a virtual experience while biomonitoring them totally and completely, but give them the freedom to move around and not be tethered to a computer. We call it a fully immersive experience using virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and olfactory scenting. We think it's a great opportunity for the company to create a market that doesn't exist today and a market that could be extremely large as we go forward. Vitamind is a functional mushroom company that we acquired, and we'll be launching those products beginning of next year. I'll update you more on that as time allows. Additionally to that, we've looked at partnering with other companies to develop our pharmaceutical products, as we've done with Core One Labs, as well as engineering the nasal delivery device. We've now got a benchtop device that works. And what we're doing now is going through the human studies to make sure that we get the efficacy we want before refining the final nasal device later next year. We divested Ionic Brands earlier this year, our ownership of Cowlitz. It brought a tremendously non-dilutive 100 million shares into the company, which we can begin divesting and bringing non-dilutive capital into the company. The value of that transaction alone today at their stock price is about $11 to $12 million to the company. We've got a lot going on. As we've announced the University of Miami data ahead of time, and we're going to be bringing more data to the forefront now that we have psilocybin in hand. We'll do our first in-man study, and we're well on the way to protocol design and site selection for that, and I'll be updating you as we move forward. Partnering with a manufacturing partner is important, and I'll update the company and I'll update where we are with that in the next month or so as we move forward. We do plan to file a pre-IND and IND with the FDA. It's important that we get our regulatory components in place so that we can rapidly advance into phase 2 and 3 studies. The team is great, very experienced, and we have a lot of successes under our belts collectively. And it's a great group to work with. I don't have time to highlight our medical advisory staff. This is probably the best group in the psychedelic industry. These physicians are thought leaders, literally thought leaders and industry leaders for decades, and we're thrilled to have them helping guide us as we move forward through the psychedelic industry. We have about 219 million shares outstanding. The stock price is depressed. We believe the company has tremendously more value than being recognized on the street right now, and we intend to make the story clear and continue to get the market know of the advances we make. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Philip. I just want to reiterate what you just said there. We feel our stock price is depressed. Always something you want to hear from an executive, obviously. You have time for a couple quick questions?
Oh, I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay here as long as you need.
Okay, awesome. So the chat was excited during your presentation. Obviously, psychedelics is a pretty popular space to be considering right now for a lot of investors. I mean, why do you think there has been this recent attention on psychedelics? Do you think it has been, the proliferation of medicinal and recreational cannabis that has helped, or do you think there's something else going on?
I think it's a recognition that mental health is so far behind the rest of the pharmaceutical environment. Cardiac medicine has improved tremendously. Oncology has improved tremendously. Mental health has lagged behind. The only thing that's been new are new generation selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors for depression. This is totally taking that and putting it on its head and actually doing something that's disease modifying. And that's really why I think everyone's excited about it. There's something for people that have long suffered.
Absolutely. And taking a question that the audience didn't necessarily ask, but I think they were wanting to ask, and I'm going to ask it for them. What do you think the catalyst is going to be to get regulators, whether it's in the government or the FDA, over a hurdle for considering, LSD or psilocybin on a federal level?
Well, I think that's a two-part question. Recreational, I think there's a long way to go before it's ever federally, if ever federally recognized. I think that the FDA regulatory approach is one that is everyone knows how to do it. If you've developed drugs, you have to do the right things. And as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the drug company Sandoz, which got absorbed into other companies over the years, marketed psilocybin in the 60s and early 70s here in the United States as a generalized treatment for mental well-being. We know that the FDA is very interested in these compounds. They're Schedule I compounds now, so that does raise a little bit of an avenue that you have to navigate with the FDA. But I think all regulators are very interested in these treatments as therapeutic opportunities for people with all kinds of brain illnesses.
Great stuff, Philip. Thanks a lot for joining us today. Philip Young, he's CEO of LOBE Sciences. On the Canadian exchange, it's LOBE, and on the OTC exchange, it's GTSIF. Thanks a lot, Philip. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Brett. Take care.
You too, sir.